Welcome to a brand new episode of Spin. This is Kevin Porter. As you see, the set's a little different. We're switching it up here on the show. No longer are we. We're gonna start covering a little bit more serious topics here, aren't we?
Yeah. It's a serious time we live in.
Well, our first story today, it covers the National Defense Authorization Act of 2012. Now, Eric, would you like to explain to the people what the National Defense Authorization Act is?
Okay, the National Defense Authorization Act is a pretty normal bill that they have to pass every year. It basically sets up the, sets the amount for defense spending for the government in a year's time. Well, normally it's no big deal, but back in 2012, over New Year's Eve, mind you, they passed this bill, and it had something added to it, which was the suspension of habeas corpus, basically. And they provided basically for the indefinite detention without access to your day in court of American citizens. And well, there's some people who are not very happy about that.
They're a little mad, yeah. But actually, man, when I've spoken to the people out here in Yakima, it really seems that most people have no clue whatsoever on exactly what this is and what it pertains to.
I would say probably at least 80%.
This isn't Nazi Germany, man.
I would say at least 80% of people don't really know what it means and what it means for you and me.
Yeah. Well. We're going to go ahead and go into the story today. The story is actually from Russia Today. It was published back on January 3rd of 2013. It goes into this saying that President Barack Obama signed the National Defense Authorization Act of 2013 on Wednesday, giving his stamp of approval to a Pentagon spending bill that will keep Guantanamo Bay open and make indefinite detention for U.S. citizens as likely as ever. So they're moving forward. It's kind of funny, okay? Because a lot of people, when Obama was elected back in 2008, change. That was the big thing that was kind of motivating everybody to vote for him. Like, all right, we just had 8 years of Bush. Let's
We're ready for some change.
We're ready for some change. I mean, I drank the Kool-Aid. I'm guilty of it.
Yep.
But the man has continued most of George Bush's foreign policies when it comes to his administration. I mean, they're still dropping bombs in the Middle East. They're still killing innocent people. And now they're going ahead and trying to round up U.S. citizens. So, going further, the president inked his name to the 2013 NDAA to little fanfare when this happened this year. And it was accompanied his signature with a statement condemning a fair number of the provisions contained in the bill that he nevertheless endorsed. So he's trying to say, hey guys, I know this is messed up, but I got to sign it anyway. I'm the president. I can't dictate this. Dictator.
Yeah. Well,
so he's trying to go off and say that well, we're going to use discretion when it comes to who we round up. Exactly.
Well, and as I seem to remember, he said that about the first one.
He did. No, and he
said, oh well, we're suspending habeas corpus, but don't worry, I'm not going to use it.
Yeah, we'll use with discretion.
That's like Hitler saying, well, I don't like Jews, but hey, don't worry about it. I probably won't build a concentration camp.
The Obama administration, with the introduction of the provision last year that allows the military to detain United States citizens indefinitely without charge or trial for mere suspicions of ties to terrorism. Under the 2012 NDAA Section 1021, President Obama agreed to give the military the power to arrest and hold Americans without the rights of habeas corpus, although he promised with the year's signing statement that his administration would not abuse his privilege, like basically just covering what we just said there.
What my question is what defines somebody's suspicion of terrorism?
Well, that's why they leave it open, for interpretation. That's why anybody, because nowadays everybody's on Facebook, everybody's posting their little thoughts online, so everybody can see. So it's brought to the masses. Well, guess what? That's gonna start biting some people in the freaking butt, man. Like, I'm already seeing it. There was somebody down in California that got charged with making some redundant threat towards some sort of government agency, and guess what? They rounded him up. He's in jail now. I mean, you got to really be cautious with what you put online nowadays. That's for sure.
That's a scary
especially
world
with this. Moving on, though, in response to the controversial indefinite detention provision from last year, Senator Dianne Feinstein, Democrat from California, introduced an amendment in December 2012 that would have forbid the government from using military force to indefinitely detain Americans without trial under the 2013 NDAA. So Dianne Feinstein, took the initiative and was like, hey, Obama, knock it the hell off. This is bullcrap. We're not doing this. You need to stop it.
Right. But another thing I heard about, though, is this Feinstein Amendment is what they're calling it.
Mm-hmm.
It is pretty poorly worded, actually. It doesn't really...
Well, let's go ahead and continue. And I believe this article explains further into it, Eric. Says, although the provision dubbed, like you said, the Feinstein Amendment, passed the Senate unanimously, so apparently the Senate was on their side, a select panel of lawmakers led by Senate Armed Service Committee Chairman Carl Levine, Democrat, Michigan, stripped it from the final version of the NDAA 2 weeks later before it could clear Congress.
Oh,
so therefore, thanks to Carl Levine, he stripped it. They went ahead and took it away because you got to kind of wonder. I mean, obviously, we need due process here in this country. We need that right to be able to get in front of a judge and explain ourselves and try to work out whatever situation we get ourselves in. Okay?
That was kind of the idea. Yeah.
That is the idea, right? I mean, that is the idea, right? So it makes it wonder, though, kind of going back to what we were just saying previously. I mean, with the wording and everything, what is their real intention with this?
Well, basically, they're posturing. What they're posturing for is what may happen within the next 10 years in America, which is the poor people are going to get pissed off enough to try to, American Spring, yeah, it could happen.
An American uprising?
Yeah.
Wasn't that what like the Occupy movement was supposed to
symbolize?
symbolize?
Yeah, well, the Occupy was, people can say whatever they want about it, but that was just the beginning, man. I mean,
it's still
peaceful protests, that's where it's at. But, if protesting something becomes treason, then we're all screwed.
Well, the way I would try to solve this is that in order to stop the American government, you stop paying taxes. You stop funding their tyranny. You stop feeding these thugs money in order to keep, coming after us.
Yeah, well then,
I mean, that's something to
chuck
take
your
on
ass
mind.
in jail for tax evasion, like
dude,
they
no,
did.
I just read the other day saying that over 70% of Detroit do not pay any sort of property taxes this year. So I'd like to see the IRS come after all these people that are choosing not to support tyranny here in our country.
Ask Wesley Snipes how he's doing.
Well, that's why they do that with like people like Wesley Snipes and people of a higher profile. They try to make an example of them. Example of them, exactly. So, in exchange, Congress added a provision, Section 1029, that claims to ensure that any person inside the United States is allowed their constitutional rights, including habeas corpus. But supporters of the Feinstein Amendment say that the swapped wording does nothing to erase the indefinite detention provision from last year. So basically, they're like, okay, well, if you're in the United States, you're still allowed habeas corpus, but what happens if you go out to England, go out to Ireland, go out outside anywhere of the country? I mean, they could just round you up and then bam, you're done. Throw you in a jail cell.
Yeah, and I mean, still, what's your definition of a terrorist? I mean, what defines a terrorist act? I mean,
according to them, it's probably anything. I mean, I could get online
criticizing our government.
Obama's the worst president ever, and that could be considered a threat. Yeah. I mean, they like you said, it's open to interpretation, man. So moving on, there's actually
scary world we live in.
There's a quote in here from Senator Rand Paul, Republican from Kentucky, saying that new language somehow ensures the right to habeas corpus, the right to be presented before a judge, is both questionable and not enough. Citizens must not only be formally charged, but also receive jury trials and other protections our Constitution guarantees. Habeas corpus is simply the beginning of due process. It is by no means the whole. Okay, so this is something he stated after the Feinstein Act was removed by Carl Levine, Democrat, Michigan. So I'd like to, see a little bit more people like this, actually going after it and trying to actually do something to try to, eliminate this issue that we have going on with this tyrannical government that is looking to take away rights. I mean, look what they're doing with the gun right. I'm not saying that the gun rights is, that's the main issue here. I believe that's, a Fox issue to try to play off and get people's attention away from, possibly other things that are going on. But, it's definitely a major issue. It definitely seems like they're, the government just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. And
first they take away your guns, then they take away your ability to fight in court. What else? What are they going to take next? Your life?
Our Bill of Rights is not something that can be cherry-picked out legislators' convenience. When I entered the United States Senate, I took an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution. It is for this reason that I will strongly oppose passage of the McCain Conference report that strips the guarantees to a trial by jury, Senator Paul added.
Wait.
The guy that was locked up in a cage in Vietnam, he's trying to strip people of habeas corpus here in the United States? Kind of an oxymoron, right? You think he would kind of know about being thrown in a cage and what that's kind of like.
Well, okay, here's my question. Okay, so theoretically, Obama had to pledge to uphold the Constitution as well, yes?
Correct.
So, by passing this in the first place, he violated his job.
Correct. But moving on, it does go in further detail, Eric. It says, although that President Obama rejected the indefinite detention clause when signing the 2012 NDAA, a statement issued late Wednesday in January from the White House failed to touch on the military detainment abilities. On the other hand, President Obama did voice his opposition to a number of provisions included in the latest bill, particularly the ones that will essentially render his promise of closing Guantanamo Bay, a military prison, impossible. So they're not going to close that out. Basically, it goes on to continue stating that despite repeated pleas that Gitmo will be closed on his watch, President Obama failed to do so as much during his first term in the White House. Thanks to a provision in the 2013 NDAA, the Pentagon will be unable to use funds to transfer detainees out of the facility and other sites, ensuring that they will remain at the top secret military prison for the time being. So they're basically just like, we're going to leave it open. They're going to torture. I mean, what are they doing? What's it there for?
So what you're telling me is a president made a promise that he's not going to keep. Wow. I'm shocked by that.
Even though, this is quoting Barry Obama, even though I support the vast majority of the provisions contained in this act, which is comprised of hundreds of sections spanning more than 680 pages of text, I do not agree with them all. Our Constitution does not afford the president the opportunity to approve or reject statutory sections one by one, which that's complete fucking bullshit.
Why'd you
I'm
sign
sorry. So, excuse my language, but why exactly? You don't have to sign that. I mean, I'd like to see our defense, we don't need a standing army. We don't need a standing army. That just promotes fear and hate, I believe.
Well, people say, we need this strong military in case China comes over and attacks us.
Well, I agree. We should, if somebody attacks us, we should defend.
Why would they come over here?
Yeah, you're right. They haven't invested. They already have invested
interest
in America. Yes.
And selling us money. So why would they?
And then we turn around and take that money and spend it on their products.
Right.
In essence, making them more money.
I mean, this idea that military might somehow keeps our place in the world, it's just not true, man. I mean,
it goes on to say that Congress claims the president designed sections of the new defense bill in order to foreclose my ability to shut down Guantanamo Bay detention facility. So they're trying to. Some people within Congress apparently are saying that, hey, Obama, that stuff you just said where you can't go through and pick and choose what's in the bill. It sounds like you kind of set that one up yourself. So who's lying? Who's lying to us, guys? Kind of want to know that.
Well, they're all liars.
No, they all are, but you gotta think at least maybe there's got to be a couple people within our system that really truly believe in freedom and liberty for all, but obviously they're not doing anything about it or are not able to push that issue forward.
They're not trying very hard.
That's right. So moving on, elsewhere the president claims that certain provisions in the act threaten to interfere with his constitutional duty to supervise the executive branch of the United States. Before the 2013 NDAA was finalized, it was reported by the White House that President Obama would veto the legislation over the provisions involving Guantanamo Bay. Now, did he do that? Obviously not. Similarly, the White House originally said that the president would veto the 2012 NDAA over the indefinite Indefinite detention provisions, although he signed it regardless with reservations on December 31st of 2011.
Dude, I want to punch him in the face with reservations. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it just comes back to it. I mean,
Reserve a getaway car.
What
you know
I mean, what are their plans? I mean, is this the new world order that so many people have been speaking of for so long? I mean, it kind of moves. Well, it kind of seems like we're. I mean, I've heard. I mean, this is kind of just going to conspiracy, but I've heard things that where they're trying to intentionally destroy our economy, so therefore we have to go to one world economy, and what's that going to do?
Oh, that could be true. I mean.
Like I said, that's a conspiracy
theory.
But,
see, that's the thing, though, is that, these conspiracy theories, I used to think, oh, well, these people are insane. And, our government couldn't possibly be doing this. Well, over the last 10 years, I gotta say, I've
kind of had a change of opinion on that.
Mean,
is that correct?
They seem to be more and more sane every day, which scares the absolute hell out of me. And, as far as what can we do right now,
that's also up for interpretation.
Yeah.
What can we do, Eric?
Yeah,
I mean there's people,
honestly, the best thing I think that anybody could do right now is to spread the spread of information.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing here. We're
the one thing we gotta fight for,
yep.
We'll be doing something right when the government tries to shut the internet off. Put it that way.
Well, we are here in Washington State. We are actually trying to do something about this issue, Eric. This article is entitled "States Join the Fight to Nullify Indefinite Detention Under the NDAA." Okay, and this actually just came out recently. This is just a couple weeks ago in February. So President Barack Obama signed the latest National Defense Authorization Act into law on January 2nd, renewing the power to apprehend and detain Americans indefinitely granted in the previous year's version. In order to protect their citizens from being grabbed and imprisoned under the provisions of the NDAA, many state lawmakers are standing up to the federal government, proposing resolutions nullifying this unconstitutional power at the state borders. So we're trying to nullify it.
Right. Well, I would like to think that's because if they didn't do that, we'd chuck their ass out.
Just to explain what nullification is to people. Nullification is a concept of constitutional law recognizing the right of each state to nullify or invalidate any federal measure that exceeds the few and defined powers allowed the federal government has enumerated in the U.S. Constitution. So nullification exists as a right of the states because the sovereign states formed the Union, and as creators of the compact, they hold ultimate authority as to the limits of the power of the central government to enact laws that are applicable to the states and citizens thereof. So obviously, they don't want their citizens rounded up. I mean, I'm not saying the states any better. I'm sure they want to hold us to the neck down to the ground as much as possible. I mean, look what just happened here recently with them. The Supreme Court here in Washington State basically going ahead and saying, hey, people's opinion, because we 2/3 majority vote when it comes to taxes. That's something that's been in act here in Washington State for the past 20 years. And just recently, the Supreme Court ruled down that that's unconstitutional, that basically, no, the Congress or Senate are able to create tax hikes without a majority vote. So therefore, it kind of looks like, hey, the state of Washington is going to force more taxes down on the people. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, well, the tax money from all that weed that's legal now ain't going to be enough for them.
As President Obama continues accumulating all legislative, executive, and judicial power, the need for nullification is urgent. The liberty-minded citizens are encouraged to see state legislation boldly asserting their right to restrain the federal government through application of that very powerful and very constitutional principle.
But what if they get rounded up?
That's a good question.
Like
I said, it's, what we're talking about. Honestly, what can we do to stop this? Because there's not much. Because obviously, I come from a perspective, a peaceful perspective. But I know people that want to rise up. They feel that the only way real change is going to happen in this country is if there's a revolution of some sort, a violent revolution. And the further and further that we keep going, it's obviously I like to see peaceful protests, and I like to see this done peacefully, and I believe it can be done peacefully. But the further and further we keep going forward, you kind of have to throw your hands up and it's like, well, what do we do? I mean, like I said, you can stop paying taxes, but like you said, you run the risk of getting thrown in jail anyway.
Snipes.
Exactly. They'll make an example out of you.
And that's a good question, the what can you do aspect of it. I mean, really, the best you can do is tell people.
Just
tell as many people as you can about it. Keep bringing it up, and most people, when they first hear about it, won't believe it and be like, "What do you mean the government's trying to take away all of our rights?" Well, guess what? It's here.
This ain't 1984.
It's here, and it's been here for over a year now.
Moving on, the House of Representatives of Washington, for example, is considering the Washington State Preservation of Liberty Act. Introduced earlier this month, this bill condemns and criminalizes the use of the indefinite detention provision of the NDAA. HB 1581 enjoys bipartisan support. So, good to know, Democrats and Republicans, we all know you're full of crap, but at least you're coming together on this one.
Again, they're trying to not lose their jobs.
The bill's primary sponsor is State Representative Sharon Tomiko Santos, from Santos, Washington. Have you ever heard of Santos? No. Anybody here at Santos, Washington here? I sure as hell haven't. Who's joined by at least 8 other Democrats and 12 Republicans. The state Senate in the Evergreen State is considering a companion bill co-sponsored by Democrat Bob Husagowa and Marilyn Chase. Butchered that name. That was great. Both measures intend to prevent the president from sending the military to arrest and detain Washingtonians under the authority of Section 1021 of the fiscal year 2012 NDAA. Section 4 of HB 1581 prohibits state or local offices or employee or agent of the state of Washington or employee of a corporation providing services to the state of Washington or a member of the National Guard or State Defense Forces acting in his or her capacity as a state or local official or employee or agent of the state of Washington or employee of a corporation providing services, I just reread that, or member of the National Guard or State Defense Forces. So basically within this proposal that they have going, they're basically stating that, hey, federal government, you want to round up any American citizens within the United States, within Washington, yeah, we're not going to help you, which is good. I'd like to see that. I would like to see.
So in other words, the state agencies are not going to assist the federal.
They're not going to assist. So I don't know how far that's going to go. I don't know if you can call 911 and be like, hey, the federal government's at my door. I need some help. Yakima cops can help me. I mean, for the most part, I don't believe that they're gonna assist you, but they're definitely not going to go out of their way to help the federal government arrest you.
They're not going to assist you, but they're not going to assist them either.
Exactly. Another section makes a violation of this prohibition a felony. So they're looking at anybody that does try to assist the federal government in terms of arresting. It'll be a felony. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing. As of press time, the Preservation of Liberty Act sits in the House Committee on Public Safety. Sponsors await the scheduling by committee chairman of the hearing on the bill. As reported by the Examiner, last year's version of the bill died in committee, so supporters are urged by activists to pursue the chairman of the committee to act while the tide is high. So apparently they tried passing this last year as well, but nothing happened. That kind of just dropped it right there. Well, we'll see. I guess we'll have to wait and see if they actually pass this.
That comes down to the sheeple, I guess.
In the nation's heartland as well, state representatives are standing up for the constitutional rights of their constituents. Kansas State Representative Brent Hildebrand has introduced HB 2161. So I guess HB would be House Bill 2161. A bill protecting Kansians. Is that what they're called? Kansians?
Kansasians? Yeah.
Kansans.
There you go.
From being nabbed and detained by the military operating under orders from the president as authorized by the NDAA. One notable and noteworthy aspect of the Kansas legislation is described by a report published by the 10th Amendment Center. Have you ever heard of the 10th Amendment Center? No? Okay, well, going on. This bill is different from quite a bit stronger than previous bills introduced around the country to nullify the NDAA indefinite detention. It includes kidnapping charges for federal agents attempting to arrest people in Kansas without due process. I like that. Charge those assholes with kidnapping charges, because that's essentially what they're doing. It's essentially coming in there and kidnapping.
That's a good idea.
Unless you're going around with bombs and trying to actually hurt innocent people, it's kidnapping in my
Well, that's a great idea, but the implementation of that,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, how exactly are they going to know the federal government's coming in to arrest people? I mean,
I mean, I don't think.
I mean, this could be like Gestapo come in the middle of the night, just take you.
Yeah,
and that's it.
I mean, you know, you'll be walking down the road and somebody will push your ass into a van, and that's it. I mean,
and if you got no habeas corpus, I mean, kind of screwed, guys.
Yeah, I mean, unless you got a cell phone.
Yeah,
in your head.
Yeah. Oh, in your head, right? I mean, I would assume if you're like, hey, no, just take it and smash it.
Or if you're wearing, what's that Google Glass or whatever it is?
I've never heard of that. What's that?
Some new technology.
Oh, that's cool.
Just like use your eye or something like that. You like wear these glasses or something.
Huh. We'll have to do an episode on that. Legally speaking, when a suspect is denied his constitutionally protected right of due process, any detention, regardless of the detaining authorities, is nothing less than government-sanctioned kidnapping. The Kansas bill appreciates this legal reality. Hildebrandt's bill states, in part, a person who violates the provision of the section may also be prosecuted or convicted of and punished for kidnapping or aggravated kidnapping. So they are really pushing the kidnapping bill on this one.
Well, as I said, you know, that's cool, but I find it really hard to believe
how they're going to enforce it.
How they're going to enforce that.
You know what they should do? They should set up some sort of hotline, right? I mean, I would assume at some point you're going to be able to have, because it did state within the 2013 that as long as you're arrested within the United States, you are going to be allowed habeas corpus, right? You should set up a phone line, you know, like a 411. Hey, Governor, I just got arrested. I need your help. You know, maybe we can send some people out to help these people. I mean, that's a long shot, but I mean,
call your congressman.
Write your congressman, right? All right, so moving on. Kidnapping is a severity level 3 felony with the potential of 8 years in prison. Aggravated kidnapping is a severity level 1 felony with a prison sentence of over 20 years being possible. Both of these felonies are subject to fine to not exceed $300,000. So, I mean, they got the wording right, but like it keeps coming back. I mean, how are they going to implement this?
Yeah, it's, the implementation of it is what I'm...
It goes on in quotations. Indefinite detainers are also subject to being charged with misdemeanor for the denial of due process of any apprehended under the terms of the NDAA. Punishment for the conviction of violating this section could include a definite term of confinement in the county jail, which shall be fixed by the court and shall not exceed 1 year, and a sum not exceeding $2,500. When I first heard about the federal government was considering indefinite detention, I was horrified, but I was unaware of how to fight it at the state level. After reading about the anti-NDAA legislation introduced in Texas, I knew we needed to attempt the same thing here in Kansas, said Representative Hildebrand, as quoted by the 10th Amendment Center. He continued, the kidnapping portion was added to convey the seriousness of the offense. If a non-government official were to take someone against their will and hold them without access to the outside world, we would consider that kidnapping. If a government official does the same thing without granting access to a lawyer or the courts, I see no difference. In a final denial of the federal usurpation of police power? Of police power, Representative Hildebrand's bill protects citizens in the Sunflower State for being placed under the jurisdiction of the U.S. military. So, that's pretty much the article right there. I mean, it's good to know that there are states, including here us in Washington, apparently Kansas and Texas, that are actually trying to stand up against the federal government and saying, no, enough is enough.
So, some people do know about it.
A lot of people, I would say, know about it, but, for the most part, the common folk, they really have no clue, because, like I said, going back, they're paying attention to American Idol, they're paying attention to this, people need to be aware of the situations that are going on here in our country.
They're falling for the distractions that are provided for them.
Are you saying American Idol is a distraction?
Yeah.
Looking at Nicki Minaj's face is a distraction. Chick's ugly.
Yeah, she's pretty weird looking.
So I guess, my final statement has to be is, people listen, do some research, get online, don't just get online and use Facebook. I mean, there's more to life than just Facebook.
And for God's sakes, don't
television.
Just share an article on Facebook.
Actually read the article, please.
Read it and try to explain it to somebody.
Exactly.
Tell people that you would think would have no clue about this, or tell people that you wouldn't that you think wouldn't care about it? I mean, tell everybody.
Just bring it up, man. Go, bring
You
it up
know-
to your grandma. Bring it up to your bus driver. Let's
I mean,
talk about
we
this.
went-
Let's
we
get this
went,
out in the
you
public
know,
forum, guys.
We went pretty strongly into the specifics, but I mean, really, you could relate it to somebody as, hey, did you hear the government passed a bill that allows them to arrest us whenever the hell they want?
Well, and going back to like when I said we talked, here just recently. I mean, this was going to be included in this episode, but we had zero luck with this. In terms of talking to people, every person that we talked to on the streets about the National Defense Authorization Act had no clue on what it was. It just really goes to show that this country is very ill-informed when it comes to what our government is doing. And
Well, it's one of those things, and unless
it doesn't affect me, so screw it.
Yeah, if it's not in their backyard, then it's not
Whatever.
a concern.
Exactly. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to end it for us here on Spin This with Kevin Porter. Make sure to get online, read some information, and spread the word. I'm Kevin Porter.